And it can be very scary because the third sign is probably the scariest one. And one of the major phases is the death of a false sense of self, not of ego. Ego death is a myth. Let's mystify that. A lot of people think that at the stage they call it the death of the ego. There is not such a thing, because ego is just a memory. Everything is a memory. Let me explain. A spiritual awakening is not what it sounds like. It's not like floating up in lotus position in the clouds, seeing angel and people bowing down on your feet and putting a garland around you. Here are the 6 major breathtaking sign or phases, you could say, of a spiritual awakening. So what is a spiritual awakening? It's on freezing. So let's look at them deeply. When you awaken, is all this garbage, the bag you have been carrying, that load of karmic structure is falling off. So the first sign is when the energy rises at the Anahata, you start experiencing light differently. So it is, you become ultra sensitive, vulnerable, and emotional. And this is what you will notice when the energy, what we call in the yogic tradition, Mahashakti, Shakti, it's just primordial energy. You could say when Kundalini energy, because they are synonymous also, beloved. And so when it's rising at the level of the Anahata in the heart chakra, you having a heart opening experience. You feeling everything on a new, different level. And I would even say that my inner knowing, that for many of you who are empath, your energy is right here in the Anahata. The Anahata heart chakra, it is the center, how would I say that, located in a position between the physical level, existential level, to the beyond. And it goes in between one to the other. So that's why it's a beginning of a new, seeing the world differently. So that's number 1 sign. Number 2 sign is from compulsion to consciousness. Compulsion, all those puppet string that has been your karmic structure, what we call samskara, impression. That's what forms a karmic structure. There are the impression become the tendency, the vasana. So beloved, all those signs can be, and they're phases, but they could happen simultaneously, or you could linger longer into one phase, and sometimes it could be many phases. When I look back at my own spiritual awakening, which it's happened when I was in my early 30s, complete heartbreak, devastating, fell into a major depression, and my heart just opened up, and it was a fury of emotion. All what I was repressed of karmic structure from childhood just came up like a volcano, and everything unfolded for so many decades. So those puppet string of your accumulation, your conditioning, all of this will start falling off little by little. And it can be very scary because the third sign is probably the scariest one, and one of the major phases is the death of a false sense of self, not of ego. Ego death is a myth. Let's mystify that. A lot of people think that at the stage they call it the death of the ego. There is not such a thing, because ego is just a memory. Everything is a memory. Let me explain. Asmita means ego identification. So what really is falling and dying layer after layer is all those false sense of self, of identification related to what it's called ego. Ego is just a memory. It's just a sense of I amness. It serves survival. Without it, you cannot stay in the body temple. So ego can never die. Even an enlightened being will always have a sense of survival, of I-ness. Without that, it's impossible to stay in the body temple. So there's a lot of confusion about ego. So it is the death of the false self. Ego identification, such as believing that you are Hindu or Muslim, and that is who you are Christian. So religious background, ethnicity background, thinking that you're Indian or you're Canadian or you're Pakistanis, or you see what Devi Ma means, thinking this is who you are, and socioeconomic background, that you're poor or you're rich or middle class, and so religious background, all of this, ethnicity background, economic background, gender, that's a big one. I am a female, I am a male, and even sex orientation, thinking I'm gay. All of this is what's happening when the death of false identification. That it's not even a word, it's basically what happened is the karmic structure of those accumulation that was imprinted into the physical body, and in the subtle body just start falling off. And I talk about all of this in depth in my program, because what's happening in Becoming the Light Inner Journey Mastery Program, because what happens as you awaken, that process is a spiritual process, is that you go through the different layer envelope, what we call the Maya kosha, and I talk about that in depth in my program. Because when you understand that, it will make so much sense, it will help you, because you got to go through the mental body, especially the mental body, the mana maya kosha, and then the pranic body, the prana maya kosha. And so you could tap into other dimension. I won't go into all of this because it will be too much now. But in the program, and let's see, we did 3 so far.